Hi grade 8s. This week we're making chocolate mousse. That originates in France, and in fact the French is quite famous for making mousses, and they've been making them since the 1700s. And you can get sweet or savoury mousses. Sweet mousses might be chocolate or caramel or fruit flavoured mousses, or you can even flavour them with herbs like mint or spices like vanilla. Savoury mousses can be made from meat or fish. A very famous one is called foie gras, and that's made from goose or duck livers. And it's very common to have savoury mousses on crackers, and you can also have savoury mousses made from cheese or vegetables. What's characteristic about a mousse is the light and airy texture, and that's achieved by incorporating whipped egg whites or whipped cream, because they trap the air bubbles in the mixture. In chocolate mousse, the egg yolk is often incorporated into the chocolate as well, because that gives an even richer mouthfeel. To make the mousse, first of all, you need to melt the chocolate. We use half a cup of chocolate, and that will make 2 servings. So we need to melt that by putting it over a saucepan of hot water. So get your small saucepan and put about 3 centimetres of water into it, and you need to choose a bowl that fits snugly on top. This one is going to work well, whereas this one, it sits too far down in the saucepan and it would actually touch the water and you'd end up overcooking and the chocolate would seize. So make sure you choose the correct sized bowl that just sits snugly on top and doesn't sink too far down into the saucepan. Now you can turn that onto a high heat as long as you watch it really carefully, and as soon as you see steam coming out, you must remove the entire thing from the heat source. Otherwise, once again, it will overcook and seize and will no longer be smooth melted chocolate, it will be little hard lumps. So the melting part is quite a delicate operation and one where you can easily go wrong. So as soon as you see steam, remove the entire thing from the heat. Then you need to separate the egg, because we need the yolk separate from the egg white. Now, it's important that you don't break the yolk, otherwise some of the yolk will get mixed with the egg white, and for the egg white to whip up perfectly, there needs to be no traces of fat in it, and the egg yolk contains all of the fat. So use a knife and just get a crack that goes through the shell, and then you can put your thumbs either side and turn it over and into the egg separator. You can also separate the egg by using the 2 halves of the shell and carefully tipping the yolk from one half to the other, but that does take a bit of practice. With this separator, just once you've tipped it in, move it from side to side until all the egg white spills out the gap that is there. The egg white needs to go into a small glass bowl, and the cream will need to go into another small glass bowl. Get a wooden spoon, and I can see there is definitely steam coming off, so I want to remove that from the heat and turn it off. There'll be sufficient steam coming up and just hitting the bottom of the bowl that will cause enough heat to melt the chocolate. Just stir that and then just let it warm and then stir it again. When you're melting chocolate, water is not your friend. You don't want the water to mix in at all, so you've got to be very careful that drips don't go into the chocolate, otherwise that will cause it to seize as well. Now that chocolate is looking beautiful and smooth and delectable. Now when you're taking that off the saucepan, get a dishcloth to wipe the base of it so that there's no drips of water. So I'll wipe that off. And then we can add the egg yolk into that. And that should go smooth and glossy. Just sit that aside. Then you need to whip up your egg whites and cream. When you're beating your egg whites, you need to beat until soft peaks form. Soft peaks are when you stop the beater and lift it out, and it will form into a peak, and then the top will just fold over. When I lift the beater out, it doesn't form a peak at all. It's just a foam at this point, so I need to keep on beating before I start adding the sugar. Don't lift the beaters out while you're beating, otherwise the egg whites will go everywhere. So when I lift the beaters out, they're just forming a peak that's then just tipping over. So I can start to add the sugar, about a teaspoon by a teaspoon. This is a bit similar to making a meringue. So a little bit in and beat it well. When you've finished beating, that egg white mixture should be smooth and glossy. You can tap the beaters to remove the excess egg white mixture, and then you can straight away start beating up the cream. If you did it the other way around, you would need to wash the beaters carefully first, because beating the egg whites, you can't have any fat present. Cream is high fat. So I'll sit the egg whites aside, and now I'll beat up the cream. Now you don't want to overbeat the cream. As soon as it's quite thick, stop beating, otherwise it will form hard lumps, a bit like you're turning it into butter. And then we're ready to start to combine it together. So we've got our chocolate mixture, our cream and the egg white mixture. We want to incorporate the cream into the chocolate mixture. So just put in about a third of it initially. We don't want to put it all in, because the heat of the chocolate will melt the cream and then we'll lose all that aeration that we've achieved by whipping it. So stir that until it's smooth, and then add another third of the cream and the remainder of the cream. Use a spatula to get all of the cream out. The cream will also cool that chocolate mixture down as well, and then we'll be ready to incorporate the whipped egg whites. And in they go. And then pour that into the 2 serving glasses. Now that looks good enough to eat as it is, but we're going to do a little extra, a strawberry salsa. So salsa being sauce, that's traditionally from Spain, which is right next door to France. So this salsa just has the strawberries sliced, and that's combined then with some icing sugar and balsamic vinegar and mint. And so it just gives a bit of freshness to the mousse. Of course, you could just serve it with some strawberries by itself, and that would be a nice addition, but this just takes it up to another level. So just remove the top from the strawberries and finely slice your mint, and just combine those in a small bowl and give that a little mix to give it time to macerate, which means for it just to absorb the flavours. The final part to this dish is the chocolate crumb. Now that really takes it to another level. We'll make this for you, and you'll just be able to use a spoonful then to go with your mousse. So we just need to combine the dry ingredients. There is plain flour, almond meal, cocoa and salt. And into that we rub in the butter. Remember, when you're rubbing in, to cut the butter as fine as possible. So just rub that in until it resembles breadcrumbs. So then just add the sugar and give that a mix. Place it onto a tray. And then that just goes in the oven for about 15 minutes at 170. You allow it to cool and then just crumble it up. So after 15 minutes, that should be just lightly cooked and golden. And then you can just take it out and let that cool. That can be stored in an airtight container, and that would keep for several days to a week. So when you're serving your chocolate mousses, you might like to just get your mousse, put a little bit of the crumb on top, and garnish with a couple of slices of the strawberry and mint. Another option would be to set the mousse into a container and then plate it up by putting a spoonful of the crumb on a plate and then a spoonful of the mousse on top of the crumb and the little salsa at the side. Or you could lay the strawberries on top and garnish with your sprig of mint. Either way, it's a delicious dessert. Enjoy your taste of France.